On quiet blocks in the middle of the day, letter carriers across western New York, including Buffalo, Amherst, and Niagara Falls, say they're becoming targets.
There has been an epidemic, across the nation now going on, multiple years where carriers across the country are being robbed, assaulted, and even killed for their arrow keys.
Buffalo and Niagara Falls police, along with the U.S. Postal Service, that since early November, 5 USPS carriers have been robbed while on their routes. 2 of the attacks involved firearms. Authorities say the common target in all of the incidents was the carrier's arrow key, the master key used to open blue collection boxes like these.
If you have that arrow key, for example, in Buffalo, New York, you can open up every one of those boxes, in that zip code.
Buffalo police documents show one incident in which masked men ambushed a letter carrier from behind and stole their satchel containing an arrow key. 2 other carriers were robbed at gunpoint on consecutive days in Buffalo. Buffalo, Amherst, and Niagara Falls police, along with federal postal inspectors, are now investigating.
The one that sticks out to me here, recently in the city of Buffalo, and I talked to the carrier the next day who happened to be a U.S. Veteran. He said, I turned around and I was staring down the barrel of a gun and I saw the bullet, at the back of that chamber, and even for a veteran, a combat veteran who's used to seeing that stuff, that's a very traumatic thing for somebody to happen.
Grosskopf and his supporters are backing federal legislation, H.R. 1065, which would fund security upgrades, replace arrow key with electronic locks, and increase federal penalties for attacks on postal workers. Congressmen Nick Langworthy and Tim Kennedy are both listed as co-sponsors of this bill.
We need them caught, we need them arrested, we need them prosecuted, and we need the most severe prosecution possible because we don't have any protection out there.
With the recent end of deer season, the vast majority of hunters did so safely in our wooded areas. But here in the Veterans Memorial Park in the city of Tonawanda, a patrolling police officer encountered a trio in a pickup truck about 2 a.m. on November 15th.
Veterans Park in our city has a couple of roads in it. The park has a 10 p.m. curfew, and the officer observed the vehicle in the distance, the headlights illuminated within the park, and decided he was going to check on that vehicle.
DEC Environmental Police say that officer found 3 men and these 2 deer carcasses, a 10-point buck and a doe, allegedly shot with a .22 caliber rifle with the use of a spotlight, as police say they fired from the truck on one of the roadways with certain danger factors.
Veterans Park is located within a residential area. On the one border, there are houses. We're talking 50 to 100 yards away, homes with people sleeping inside them.
Even the high school, which was obviously closed at the time, is relatively close to that park. A somewhat similar situation on December 1st along Ellicott Creek Road in the town of Tonawanda, as police there say 2 men were found with a shotgun and 3 dead deer in their vehicle. A witness heard gunshots and saw a deer go down. A Buffalo man arrested in this incident, also charged with reckless endangerment. Both incidents in populated areas. And sadly, we recall the November 2017 death of a woman behind her home in Sherman when she was fatally shot while walking her dogs after a hunter fired when he said he mistook her for deer. Police warn of the dangers of firing even a small caliber rifle near homes.
And a rifle bullet is covering potentially several thousand feet in 1 second. That bullet makes it a mile as if it doesn't strike something within a few seconds. There's an extreme danger, especially, shooting firearms and not knowing what is beyond your targets.
Over the last few years, New York State raised the eligibility to 85% of the state median income, which made more families eligible for daycare assistance. This week, families received letters stating Niagara County Social Services will continue to authorize child care assistance, but applications and recertifications for working families will likely be denied.
To get a letter like that a couple weeks before Christmas is definitely stressful. We're working people and, we're just struggling to make ends meet. And with the prices of rent and groceries and, everything else that comes along.
Lindsay Grofenberg says next October, she would need her son's daycare assistants to be recertified. She's concerned that she'll be put on a wait list.
When you have two people in the household that have income, even though we are a household of 5, we don't qualify for temporary assistance. The only type of assistance that I receive in my household is the daycare assistance.
The Social Services Commissioner says Niagara County receives $11 million a year to fund this program. She says the department needs more funding from the state to assist eligible families.
There's around 1,000 families who could potentially be impacted as time goes on. Right now, we're looking at applications that are due to recertify in January. So the longer we go without additional funding, the more families may be impacted over time.
The commissioner says the Niagara County Department of Social Services recognizes this is a difficult time for many families.
We would continue to encourage families to apply and get their name on that wait list, and also recertify and provide us all the documentation needed to do that. Certainly, if families are struggling financially, we would also encourage them to apply for temporary assistance.
Gina Heath depends on her SNAP and cash benefits being deposited on the 4th of every month. This month,
I was hacked and my cash was taken. And it was everything. And it was taken in Evanston, Illinois at 1:52 a.m.
Here's the receipt on her account. Keep in mind, she was in Buffalo and someone got her account number in Illinois. Her SNAP benefits for food not touched.
I just locked my card.
I spoke with another person in Buffalo. His cash benefits totaling $208 stolen from his card by someone in Detroit, Michigan. Gina reported the incident to the Erie County Department of Social Services. And while there,
at least 15 people were there, at least.
With the same issue. According to a Department of Social Services spokesperson, SNAP theft has been an ongoing issue for several years. Regrettably, it is outside of Erie County's authority to directly help victims of this form of fraud. They directed me to the New York State Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance. They responded that cardholders are encouraged to change their card's PIN frequently. Both agencies reiterating that lost or stolen SNAP benefits was not reauthorized by Congress, meaning federal authorization to replace stolen SNAP benefits ended. But if the stolen benefits are safety net cash assistance, you can apply for replacement.
So the money that was stolen from you,
stolen.
How much?
$123.
You'll never get that back?
They said 2 weeks. But that doesn't help me today.
Gina is determined to get back on her feet, but for now, depending on the system to fill the gap. Her advice to try to avoid being hacked?
Lock your card.
They're coming in from the streets and to be warm and to sleep.
Anyone who needs a place to stay can come here, the new official Code Blue shelter in Buffalo, the Buffalo City Mission on East Tupper. Staff and volunteers start setting up at 6:30 every night. There's a Code Blue. So far this fall and winter, the shelter's getting about 125 people.
It's a large number, as well as with the 120 we already serve here at the City Mission. So it's doubling our numbers, and the capacity is always every day full.
To accommodate everyone, the City Mission hired extra staff and continues to be a place people can go for hot meals and clothes. James McLean helps if someone comes in and wants to become a resident of the shelter. He will walk them through the process and is also a Code Blue liaison.
You can speak to their needs by a code, some warm words, kind words, pair of socks or whatever it is, and that's opportunity to go further into whatever the primary need is.
McLean says the staff has welcomed being the new Code Blue shelter.
Last year, I saw the need for the Code Blue population to receive case management, and once they got here, I was able to observe and watch certain people that wanted to get into shelter.
The need is larger than we see. Even in this place, even in the Code Blue mission, City Mission, the issue is larger than what we see. The numbers are larger than even what we get. So it touches your heart. It's a very emotional state to see the need.
I guess I've been in this long enough, Nate, to know that the proof is in the pudding. A new administration gives new ideas, new opportunities. We will have to flesh out some of those things.
Just because we did something previously didn't mean it was the right way, and that we have to give Sean Ryan a shot at doing this.
Prior to the news that the Ryan administration would be restructuring the org chart with 4 deputy mayors, adjusting the salary of the incoming police commissioner, and news that foundations will be contributing to a transition fund to offset some of these costs, the mayor-elect met with the members of the Common Council 4 at a time, so there wasn't any illegal quorums or anything. And in that meeting, the mayor-elect outlined a lot of plans that still have not yet been publicized. But in terms of general reaction, some of the lawmakers I chatted with have a mix of healthy optimism and a wait-and-see mentality. Their big concern is making sure that some of the funding that has been promised by these foundations ultimately doesn't wind up costing taxpayers.
Whether or not that's sustainable funding, because they're grants, and so grants have limits, and so that would be the only thing that I would be concerned about right now. And as long as we can do it legally, I'm supportive of it.
The people who I represent, I'm concerned about how this may affect them, and so I'm willing to listen, I'm willing to work with them on those things, but at the end of the day, you got to show me.
As you know, times change, things change, and funding sources change, and those priorities could change. So it's my hope that as Sean Ryan realigns City Hall and its departments, that we don't have to rely on those grants.
The mayor-elect and his team of deputies have said that they will need to get creative to fix the budget issues of the city. Bonding is on the table, tax increases are on the table, and while lawmakers may be supportive of the idea in the early stages, there may be pushback for any proposals that could directly impact city residents.
That's what I'm concerned about. Yeah, you can raise it on this end, but there's somebody's going to pay it on the other end, and that's what we've seen.
Nassau County executive and longtime ally of President Trump, Bruce Blakeman, is throwing his name into the race for New York governor.
Delivered on his promises of affordable.
The Long Island Republican is setting the stage for a contested primary with Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. Stefanik, another Trump ally with national recognition, has seen the party coalesce around her since announcing her candidacy last month. Stefanik's campaign telling the Associated Press it is unfortunate that Blakeman is putting his ego first to help prop up Kathy Hochul. Blakeman, who was reelected last month and ran in 2010 against Kirsten Gillibrand, has gained his own national attention, championing a policy that bans transgender athletes from county sports facilities and for working with federal authorities as they crack down on immigration. Republican strategist Carl Calabrese sees a battle ahead.
By any stretch of the imagination, Blakeman is an A-list candidate and probably would have been the party nominee, but for Stefanik coming out early and really capturing the heart of the party at this point. And she's going to be touting those credentials and working with those county chairs and local chairs to put together a victory. But again, this is not welcome news to the Republican Party. When you're down by over 3 million votes, facing an incumbent governor with lots of money and lots of ability to raise even more money, the last thing you really want is a primary.
President Trump not taking sides when asked about his two allies squaring off.
But he's great and she's great. They're both great people. We have a lot of great people at the Republican Party. Go ahead.
New York Governor Kathy Hochul, who is running for re-election, faces her own primary challenge from Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado. Reporting on your side in the newsroom, Rob Hackford, Channel 2 News.
It was an emotional and some said inspiring display in federal court in downtown Buffalo as survivors, one by one, rose and addressed the court by name, coming forward publicly together, many for the first time.
I got choked up listening to people some of whom I have known throughout this process, who would not say their name before, and now they've found the strength to stand up in open court to say, Judge Buckeye, I'm here. I want to speak. I want to be heard.
Survivors and their lawyers petitioned the court to allow victim impact statements in bankruptcy court in late January or early February. Chief Bankruptcy Judge Carl Buckeye approved that motion, making a rare in-person ruling that he attributed in part to the presence of survivors like John Kowalczyk.
A lot of people still have real bad memories of that, and that affected their entire lives. So I hope the settlement is somewhat compensating to them, but will they ever forget or let it go? Probably not.
The statements will take place over multiple days with an estimated 80 to 160 abuse survivors expected to speak, a practice that's increasingly common in bankruptcy cases involving claims of sexual abuse.
It will give a voice to the people who suffered so much as children and throughout their lives because of what happened to them at the hands of these predator priests. It gives them a voice, and hopefully it'll give them some healing.
The diocese, which has agreed to a settlement that may exceed $300 million, did not oppose the motions. A church lawyer said in court that Bishop Michael Fisher has agreed to attend those hearings, with a lawyer for the survivors saying the bishop has agreed to listen and not to speak.
Whether you're putting your child on a bus, dropping them off by car, or walking them yourself,
arrival and dismissal, probably the two most volatile times of the day.
and to address that, the Kenton School District is rolling out new traffic patterns at Franklin and Hoover. At Franklin Middle, the biggest shift is at dismissal. Car riders will now be split between two separate parking lots. 7th graders will be picked up in the main lot and 5th and 6th graders in the rear lot, while buses use their own designated area. And at Hoover, all car pickup and drop-off moves behind the school, with right turn entry and exit only off of Sheridan Drive, while buses remain separate in front of the building.
But some parents, rightfully so, are a little frustrated.
Kenton School District Superintendent Sabatino Samato told us these changes come with mixed reaction from parents.
How is that safer than what we have right now? It's a stupid fix to a problem that's not existent. There's no existing problem. If you want to alleviate the parking risk or a student being hit on Thorncliffe, make parents use the drop-off loop. Make this no parking only. That fixes everything.
Superintendent Samato says the goal is safety, a priority heightened after a 4-year-old girl in Jamestown was hit and killed by a school bus just weeks ago.
Jamestown, I wouldn't call, I would call it a catalyst. I wouldn't call it the only reason. Our administrators are always looking at safety. As a district, safety has been prioritized as number one.
Long after Gerace's arrest on drug and sex trafficking charges, Trotter met FBI agents at a local Panera Bread, where agent Jason Camerad, seen here, secretly recorded their conversation. Trotter said he knew Gerace from having handled harassment complaints Gerace filed against his ex-wife Katrina Nigro and brought them files to look at. One transcript of the recording has Trotter telling agents, "I think my last interaction with them was in January of 2017. But an earlier version of the statement attributed to Trotter has him saying, "I think my last interaction with him was in 2017. This led to charges that Trotter lied because the FBI had evidence of numerous calls and texts between the two right on up through 2020. Trotter also described Gerace as more or less a pest, or as prosecutors put forth in motion papers, the defendant repeatedly characterized Gerace as a bug and someone that he was not friends with. But the government contends the frequency and types of communication between the two could lead a juror to rationally conclude that Gerace was not merely a bug, but a bud. This would include Trotter providing a blow-by-blow of the arrest of Felicia Hunt, an ex-girlfriend of Gerace, after she had stolen his watch. Both Nigro and Hunt were witnesses against Gerace at his trial when he ended up being convicted. Gerace has contended the government only went after Trotter when it learned his defense team sought to call Trotter as a witness, where he could have provided testimony to undermine the credibility of both women. This is something the government denies.
We want every child, to ensure that they have nutritious meals, breakfast and lunch, get them through the school day.
It's lunchtime at Maple West Elementary School in Williamsville. The cafeteria full of students ready to eat meals that for some may not have been guaranteed before.
Even here, participation in the breakfast program is up 12%. The lunch program is up 16%. Those were kids who otherwise were not eating. And that is how we're changing people's lives.
Governor Kathy Hochul says the state's new universal school meals law, which offers free breakfast and lunch to all students, is already making an impact. Since September, she says New York schools have provided more than 150 million free meals.
That's extraordinary. And that saves parents money, those who otherwise would be paying, but also that's 2.5 million meals every single day.
At Maple West, Governor Hochul says about 100 of the school's 600 students previously relied on subsidized meals. She says making sure children are fed helps them succeed and also helps families.
Making sure our kids have a good, healthy start to the day, and also taking some of the burden of not just the expense. A typical family has to spend $1,600 per year per child to cover either the groceries for making the breakfast and lunches or to cover the cost in school. Also gives you time back. This is time back for busy parents who don't have to worry about making breakfasts or lunches for their kids.
There were 174 passengers on these rail cars last night for the Santa's Wonderland ride. As it was passing through this crossing on Chaffee Road in Java, a westbound motorist coming downhill slid into it.
Nearby residents say they do have some safety concerns about this crossing.
Rachel Bookmiller, who lives nearby, took these pictures after the collision. She says she's never seen anything like it, surprisingly.
This is the first time at my house, and I've lived there for over 20 years. And I really thought this would have happened already.
She and others note that while there are signs indicating a railroad crossing here, there are no red flashing lights, no gates, and as you approach the tracks, it's hard to see a train coming.
Here's what they're talking about. If you were driving down the road, approaching the railroad crossing, and a train was coming, your view of it would be blocked by buildings on either side of the road.
And I don't know how they would solve that problem.
Nor is this the only crossing of concern.
Over in Java Center, there's a restaurant and a car dealership. Same scenario. You can't see on either to the right or to the left because of obstruction of buildings.
In this case, though, the train was already in the crossing when the car ran into it. The driver wasn't injured, but was ticketed for speed imprudent for road conditions, which we're told were snow-covered and slippery at the time. No one on board the train was hurt.
Despite last night's mishap, the folks here at the Arcade and Attica Railway tell me that there's nothing stopping this train. The excursions will go on as scheduled. On your side, in Arcade, Dave McKinley, Channel 2 News.
A new member of Bill's Mafia is on the way. Josh Allen and Haley Steinfeld are expecting. QB1's wife just shared the newest edition of her newsletter with this video showing that she is expecting their first baby. The newsletter also talks about Steinfeld's 29th birthday being yesterday and many of the memories that she and Allen have been creating since their marriage. Congratulations.